Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined daily by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. We are 96 days away from kickoff, guys, so tell us who your favorite number 96 is. We'll circle back to that. Of course, also tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in. And fellas, it's Memorial Day. Of course, the Texas football social media accounts just tweeted this out a minute ago saying, today we honor and remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country.
Absolutely.
Love it. Love that they did that. Texas football social media game's been on point for a couple of years now, Jerry. Don't you think?
They do a great job.
Yeah, it's been running like a well-oiled machine. Certainly, thank y'all to everyone, and remember their service, and appreciate what they gave for our country and our future. So, hey, a lot of stuff going on this week as we prepare for what's going to be a very busy month of June. Congratulations to the women's softball team as well, making the Women's College World Series up in Oklahoma City. They take on Florida this Thursday at 11 a.m. They are on the side of the bracket with four. Yeah. There's two sides, right? 8 teams. Yeah. Their side of the bracket is entirely SEC teams.
Oklahoma, Tennessee, Florida.
Yeah, one SEC team is guaranteed to make the finals. Of course, unfortunately they're on the same side as Oklahoma.
Right.
And Oklahoma seems to be the barometer by which you judge yourself in softball these days. So the women have to get by Florida and then might play almost Oklahoma immediately thereafter. But one of, 5 or 6 teams? 5 teams in the SEC out of 8 in the College World Series. Also, baseball, Blake announces their selection show today. I think you and Jeff Howe are going to be hosting something like that, or hosting a show. But they did announce that there's going to be an Austin regional already. They just don't know who they're going to be playing, but that'll be later today. Texas baseball hosting the Austin regional. If they go on from that, we believe they'll also host a super regional because they're ranked so highly as well. Also this week, after this show, I'm headed down to the SEC Media Days. They get kick-started, or spring meetings. That gets kick-started on Tuesday in Destin, Florida. I'll be down there for the rest of the week, just about talking to you guys about what's going on. Steve Sarkisian speaks at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, so we'll have immediate reaction for you guys tomorrow morning from that. But also, I want to say this. It's Jerry and Blake. Greg Sankey has a lot on his table right now, just period. I mean, I went down the list this morning in our on Texas football. He's got the House settlement that hangs in the balance right now, right? No word yet. There's not going to be any word today. It's a holiday, so it's at least till tomorrow. He's got the new college football playoff that they just pushed through, where there are going to be no seeds. They're going to be direct seeded, no buys for the number 12 ranked team just because they are a conference champion. Then he's got the next college football playoff format from 26 and beyond. He's got, as part of that, a 9-game SEC schedule that he's going to have to push through. Within that 9-game SEC schedule, he has to decide if there's going to be permanent games for Texas. Like, will Texas play A&M, OU, and Arkansas every year? Just for example, right? Yeah. But he has to decide that for 16 teams. And then beyond that, he has a Big Ten SEC interconference challenge, not unlike those basketball challenges they do. He's got that, as well as the potential of a play-in game replacing the SEC championship game. I mean, Greg Sankey, when he talks, I mean, there's not going to be a lost sentence.
No.
The next, 3 days. I mean, he's got a lot on his plate, and a lot that, I don't know if it decides everything off the field as it relates to college football, but and thereby impacts the Texas Longhorns. But Jerry and Blake, it's a lot. It is a lot, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's a lot, and obviously, I think that the tip of it, outside of the NIL house settlement, the tip of it is 9-game regular season for SEC, no SEC championship game. I think those are the two major things because everybody knows we're going to a 16-team playoff in 2 years. It's not going to 14. It's going to 16. That 14 is a waste of time. It's going to 16. So then that discussion around, I mean, look, these conference championship games have been long-standing. And essentially, I just will be surprised. I think they're going away, and they're going to be, like you said, Bobby, seeded, 2 seeded games to see who gets into the college football playoff, essentially, is replacing that. And how's that all going to look? How's that all going to work? What's the reaction of the fans really when Sankey actually speaks on this? What's the reaction going to be to that? Along with the 9-game schedule for the SEC, because Blake, I think you have a great tweet to bring up off of this, because this is where things are going to change. I think Texas, as Blake tweeted this out yesterday, Texas is the only team in the SEC not playing an FCS opponent this year. So a lot of FCS opponents are going to be replaced with a 9th SEC game. And so I guess on the Texas schedule, UTEP would be replaced with a 9th SEC.
No, Texas doesn't play an FCS team.
No, I'm saying next year it would be UTEP. They were the weakest opponent. So every other SEC team is going to have to replace an FCS team with a 9th opponent. Texas will have to replace a UTEP with a 9th opponent. So that's what we're looking at, and that's going to be really interesting to the I think the fans in general in the SEC are going to like it, and because, look, it's 16-team playoff. You want 4 or 5 SEC teams to get in. You don't do that playing an FCS team. That's when you get bumped at the end of the day. So the schedule going to 9, I think, is a great thing for the conference in general.
I think it's legitimate. I mean, to be fair, though, I mean, Texas doesn't exactly, other than one non-conference game a year where Texas plays a Michigan or an Alabama or an Ohio State, like they have the last 3 years, or even a Maryland, do all the religious things. Other than that, okay, Texas does not load up. I mean, San Jose State and UTEP are not, difficult opponents for the University of Texas. So Texas is going to be replacing, to Jerry's point, one of those caliber. Yeah. And for these SEC teams that have nobody at the beginning of their schedule, I mean, absolutely nobody, they're also going to be potentially adding a 10th game against a Big Ten opponent that may be legitimate. Now, everybody's going to want Rutgers for that 10th game. Everybody's shooting for Rutgers, or I don't know, Minnesota, I don't even know. But my point being that there's a lot to that scheduling piece. And I still think that if they give Texas a 3 teams they got to play every year, it's no brainer who it is for Texas. I mean, what's the no brainer though for Oklahoma? Matt,
Missouri.
I don't know. Missouri and Texas, but beyond that,
yeah,
who do they play? I mean, how does Alabama even pick who those 3 are?
Yeah. It'll be Tennessee and LSU. Who's the third? Well, it's a lot.
Auburn. It has to be Auburn. So what about Georgia? Or what about there's just
so I was looking at this. So look at Ole Miss's schedule this year, and this is where it's going to get interesting for these teams who are trying to be playoff contenders. So this year, Ole Miss's 4 non-conference games are Georgia State, Tulane, Washington State, and the Citadel. Obviously, the Citadel, because of where that is, November 8th, is going to be replaced with an SEC game. But here's where it gets interesting.
Not this year.
I mean, in 2 years. In 2 years. Georgia State, Tulane, and Washington State. No Power 4 opponent. Okay, so is this going to force, because of where the playoffs going, because the 9-team SEC slate's taking center stage, but are these teams, if you play 3 non-Power 4 teams in your non-conference, is that the smart thing to do if it comes down to you and one other team for a playoff spot, who are pretty much hard to differentiate, maybe outside of who they played in non-conference?
Man, Jack, one of the things that this could do, and Jack's got, man, this is great. If they do get that Big Ten SEC interconference game going, OU versus Nebraska, I used to watch that every year. I got to be honest. I mean, I'm not a fan of either team, but that was always must-see TV for me as a young kid growing up and watching football. Long story short, and I think Dean Neisner has it right. It's this. It's not a plate that Greg Sankey has to eat from this week. It's a platter. I mean, he's got a load of stuff on his plate right now. He really, really does. And we'll see how that all turns out. Hey, I want to say thank you before we go any further to our sponsor today, if you don't mind. We would like to thank our sponsor, John Donovan, president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John would like to take this moment on Memorial Day to remember and appreciate all of the brave men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in giving their lives to ensure the peace, freedom, and prosperity that we are so blessed to enjoy in America today. So God bless and rest their souls. John also wants to congratulate the women's softball team and their in the entire athletic program for winning the All SEC All Sports Trophy for the 2024-25 school year, with 11 of our teams winning their SEC championships here in our very first year in the conference. To celebrate their utter dominance, John is offering all OTF fans the opportunity to dominate their own financial future by taking advantage of a free 90-minute private consultation with John to learn how working with a certified financial planner can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. Either call John and the Longhorn Wealth team at 972-707-4900 or go online, longhornwealth.net, to schedule your free 90-minute private consultation with John to build, manage, and secure your own championship team and your financial future for you and yours. That is from John and his friends and coworkers over at Longhorn Wealth Management Group. Thanks, John.
Hey, Blake, before we move to recruiting, let's finish this. King Me said, should your record win the conference like your wins in the division in the NFL, no more SEC championship game? That's where things are headed. And so it's going to be interesting, and I think that's the right thing to do. So your number 1 and 2 SEC teams, how they finish, don't play in an SEC championship in a game anymore. You're 3, 6, 4, 5. It sounds like, Bob, you're going to play in 2 games, play-in games for the college football playoff. So there is a lot on the line now in that scenario. Finishing first or second in the SEC, you get the additional week off. You're going to play 16 games instead of potentially 17, but you get the time to rest and heal, and that's the way it should be. You've earned it.
So it's even more than a week off, Jerry. So
yeah.
This
well,
is
the extra game, extra week, not having a play.
No, it's going to be 2 apparently.
Yeah.
So let me say this real quick, okay? So long story short, if they go to 16 teams, they want 4 automatic berths for the SEC. 2 of them they think will get double buys.
Yeah,
no, double buys, Jerry.
Yeah.
So 16 will play into 12. 12 will play into 8, and then the SEC 1 and 2 teams start participating in the final 8. So this is the brainchild apparently of the Big Ten commissioner, because he wants the same for the Big Ten. They both want 4 teams. They want the first game of that 16-round playoff or whatever, Jerry. They want it to be the same weekend as the Army-Navy game. And then they're going to have another game in the round of 12. And then the top 2 teams in the SEC and Big Ten enter the tournament at the round of 8. So it's really a 2-game bye. So if you finish 3rd in the SEC, you could be literally looking at potentially 17-game season.
18.
I think it's 7, but yeah, 17 games.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you, that's what they're talking about right now. They're going to try to give SEC and Big Ten a double bye into the tournament if they go to 16. That's the thought process right now. I mean, that takes them on into the new year, just to give you a kind of a feel for that. Crazy.
Definitely. All right, let's talk a little recruiting this morning. Then we got some other interesting stuff to talk about after that, including some anonymous coaches talking about Texas. But first, let's talk recruiting. Jerry, what you got for us?
Yeah, so I put a story on TexasFootball.com this morning. First, the coaches are on vacation this week. Sark's headed to Destin later today, speaking at 11 in the morning. So those guys are taking like first 4 days of the week, just kind of relaxing before the big June. So there's not a lot of big developments out there. So what I did, I wrote a story this morning. Which schools are hosting the same similar official visitors as Texas? And so essentially, where's Texas competition coming from? Who is Texas competing with the most right now in this 26 class? And Georgia is by far and away number one, which is very interesting because, by the way, that's where you want to be, because it used to be Alabama and Georgia battling for a lot of those guys. This is where you want to be, because that means you're recruiting Georgia and Florida well. Because Georgia doesn't have many official visitors from Texas. 0, maybe. Maxie Jalen Lott, maybe 2. So where are those visitors coming from? Well, they're coming from the state of Georgia. I think Texas has 10 official visitors from Georgia and the state of Florida, and maybe one trickled in from Alabama and Evadne Cleveland. So Texas and Georgia, and that doesn't mean it's head-to-heads. This is just saying prospects that both schools are bringing in for official visits. So Texas and Georgia have the most. A&M second with 11. There you see Florida 10, which makes sense because Florida's recruiting the state of Georgia. Alabama with 9, Ohio State 9, Miami 8, LSU 7, Auburn 7, Oklahoma 6, interesting, Tennessee 4. Now, I didn't include all of them. There's 10 with FSU, but I'm not sure how big a player FSU really is with some of these guys. FSU still has that ability to get guys on campus, but a lot of them are more midweek. So where they're really at, there's 4 for Oregon, 4 for Clemson, 4 for Penn State that didn't make this list. But, Bobby, it's interesting. We could start with Oklahoma. Either Jim Nagy thinks he knows more than Texas or Georgia, or they can't play in the same sandbox. I don't know which one.
I think it may be more of the latter right now.
Yeah.
They're definitely not playing in the same sandbox altogether. Doesn't make them wrong.
No.
But it matters how many of those they get, right?
Yeah.
I would just say this, first of all, Jerry, this is a great way, in my opinion, to look at the competitive nature of where Texas is competing and who they're recruiting. To say that there are 15 guys that are visiting both Texas and Georgia, and 9 of them, Ohio State, Alabama 9, Florida 10. That tells you where Texas is recruiting, the type of player they're recruiting. I've said this. Look, I know all about the star system and, top 100 rankings, all this other stuff. If Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, and say, I don't know, Michigan right now or Alabama want a guy, I don't care if he's a 2-star.
Yeah.
I mean, and put Oregon in there. If they were on him. Now, you said Oregon had 4, so they're at the bottom of this list.
People are asking about USC. USC had 7. I didn't include them because it's not a lot of it's a little different with them. I'll say that. So USC does have 7 potential.
Gotcha. My point, though, is this is who you want to be competing against.
Yes.
That's the whole – for me, it's a numbers game at some level, right? Like, definitely they are individuals, and you have to treat every recruit like an individual. No questions asked. But the issue here isn't that. It's that these are who you want to be competing against.
Right.
And there's nothing that tells you that more than if you're competing against Georgia for recruiting. I mean, they've been the high watermark for college football for a number of years. Ohio State up there as well. So I think it's a great way to look at it, Jerry, and I appreciate you putting this together.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this too is, and on the USC thing, there's some kids that visited USC that really don't have USC high on their list necessarily. That's why I didn't include them in this. There's like 3 of those guys. So USC is kind of interesting to me. But with A&M in Texas, one interesting thing, when you look at A&M's visitors list, offensive line battles are there. So within this, where are those battles? At Georgia, Texas, obviously D-line, edge, and linebacker make up more than half of those battles. And then the other thing that's interesting with Georgia, is Mark Bowman and Caden Prothrow, tight ends. Are Texas and at Georgia hoping they split those two guys? I think potentially that could be what they're hoping there, because neither school's going to get both of those guys. So now Caden Prothrow has Florida, Auburn, Tennessee. He has all the visits, Alabama. But it's interesting what positions these battles are coming from. Obviously, Florida is a lot of D-line because Texas is recruiting those guys in Florida, and is also tied in Hezzy Kent, Caden Prothrow. So that makes up more than half of those visits. So it's interesting where they're coming with Alabama. It's 3 running backs, obviously, are the same. We're still waiting for Derek Cooper's OV to Texas. It's going to be a midweek. So it's interesting to see where those visits are coming from. But with your SEC schools, with your Southeast region schools, your Georgia, your Auburn, your Tennessee, D-line, linebackers, and Alabama. D-line, linebackers is where a lot of those visits are positionally.
Okay, let's see here. We have a super chat while we're on the subject of recruiting that I want to go ahead and bring up from Jack. Thank you, Jack. As always, we appreciate it. He says, Bobby, Jared, is there a high school today that you would consider a Texas pipeline school?
Westlake is close to one.
That's probably the one. Not really, though. Is recruiting so different now? It's just so different because of NIL. I would say no to that.
I think a good player at Westlake, if Texas really goes after him, tends to go to Texas. But to Jerry's point, now that Texas recruits everywhere,
right?
It kind of diminishes that. Duncanville, Texas was hopeful to get that going, but lost on DeCorian Moore after getting Colin Simmons. Right? They got Alex January as well. So
Cam Williams, they got
that. Waco Midway at one point. Maybe with you think you have Jelani McDonald, Kobe Black, even Trey Wisner from that group. But I don't know. I don't see one right now.
I don't see one right now either. And I think it's just, look, Texas is because Texas is recruiting nationally. I mean, in the Mac Brown era, if that was today, then yeah, you could probably have 2 or 3 of those in the state, but I just think it's so different now in recruiting. It's hard for there to be, like, if it's a smaller, when I say smaller, 5A, if Angleton has guys come up that are Texas level good, Texas has a really good shot.
Yeah, Texas tends to get. What about North Crowley right now, Jerry? I mean, a couple of guys, and if Turntine heads that way,
yeah.
I mean, right? That you could have some burgeoning. Had Jonathan Cunningham last year.
Yeah. And then, it's just it's interesting because, again, when you recruit nationally, then Aaron Bradshaw, who's committed to Tech, who's a really good player, Texas offered, but they never really pushed for. That's where it gets so interesting for me in recruiting nowadays is there's not the emphasis on in-state kids, and in-state kids don't have an emphasis on staying home either, by the way. So, I mean, like, you would think a lot of people, Mac did really good things at North Shore. Well, then LSU with North Shore. But even Devin Sanchez said no to both and went to Ohio State last year. So I'm not sure there are really pipelines anymore for the major schools.
Okay, and then actually want to use this super chat as a good segue to our next thing that we're going to talk about here from David Parcell. He said John Mateer ran 60% of the snaps last season with Washington, and most of his runs were right up the middle. Is that a formula for success in the SEC? I'm going to let y'all answer that, then we'll get into the anonymous coaches.
Not on that schedule.
We'll find out.
Not on their schedule they're playing, Bobby. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you're going to run him. He ran him, 185 times last year, right around there. Had rushing 185-ish rushing attempts. 170, I think, was the actual number at Washington State. 60% of those up the middle against Texas, Alabama, LSU. I mean, Auburn has big dudes. Ole Miss, that schedule, I don't know. They may have to adjust a little bit.
Don't they play South Carolina?
Yep.
Yeah. I look. Let's see if that offense really works in this conference. We don't know. We really don't know. It's I feel like that in one of the we're going to talk about what some SEC or what some opposing coaches say about different teams here in a second. One of them said this, and I agree with it. No team anywhere put as much emphasis on a single player with a transfer than John Mateer at Oklahoma. I mean, Brent Venables is basically betting his career on John Mateer and Coach Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator up there. I mean, that's what he's doing. If this doesn't work, Brent Venables is gone. Here it is in a hot seat situation for sure. They're banking on an instant impact from Arbuckle and Mateer, the way Vanderbilt brought in the New Mexico State coach quarterback combo. That could happen. Their receivers were non-existent last year, but a lot of that was injury. They should bounce back and give Mateer some options. Normally, it's not a great idea when a head coach goes back to play calling, but Venables was one of the best in the nation at it when he was at Clemson. He wants to have more control over what he knows, but it's a huge gamble that Mateer can come in and immediately acclimate to playing against the defenses in this league. We'll see if he can do it because that's what will determine this staff's future. I could not agree more than that. I mean, Blake, I think that says it plain. I mean, he is gambling his entire career on this move. And so more power to him, I guess. But it's absolutely happening.
And we'll save Texas for last, fellas. Let's also look at what they had to say about A&M, which kind of surprised me. I thought it was going to be a little bit more negative than it was, but I'll read you the first one here. They didn't finish strong, but the turnaround here was remarkable. As coaches, we talked about the culture at this place really falling to rock bottom under Jimbo. You turn on the tape from Elko, and those kids are playing harder, playing smarter. That's coaching, but it's culture. It's the want to. And then another coach said they have a great run game, and the entire offensive line should be back. Reed's ceiling is still to be determined. He showed a lot of good and some bad last season. And then two other coaches followed up with Elko is going to be more involved on the defense, I think. The need position in the offseason was defensive line, so watch for that. Elko understands A&M, and eventually this could be the most physical, aggressive team in the league.
Yeah, that's not happening. I mean, no offense, but that's not happening. What do you think, Jerry?
I agree. I agree with the culture part at A&M because it had to change, and it was a drastic change. Same thing Sark did when he got to Austin. And it had to be drastic. Knowing a couple of players, parents that are on that team, they said it was a drastic change. No late to meetings, a zero strike policy early on, So you could the idea is 100% correct, what Elko's trying to do. He's doing what other coaches have done when they go in and it's a crappy culture and they have to try to build it up. And you're never going to be a physical team and be the type of team he wants to be if you don't have strong culture. It won't work. So he came in and made some big changes. Now, my question there is with them is in year two, and I do think they're making strides there. From talking to a couple of parents that I dealt with in recruiting when kids were coming down to decisions and that ended up at A&M versus Texas or versus Oklahoma, just guys we covered. So they've made strides there. Now the question becomes, how much will they ascend from there? And we'll see on D-line because the need in the offseason was D-line, so watch for that. Did they get their guys? Did they get their guys or have their younger guys developed? I think that's going to probably tell the story of their season.
Elko said he thinks he's going to have 10 to 12 guys drafted. If that's the case, that's a healthy draft class.
The fact that he said that, he just backed himself up against the wall because now A&M fans are like, you better make the playoffs then.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Well, as I said, we'll look at the Texas one here in just a moment. But first, I got to bring this one up from Longhorn Frenzy. Huge super chat
Woo!
from him this
Man.
morning. He says, "Thanks guys for putting in the work this morning while most are off. Just another reason why y'all are the best. Hook 'em."
Hey,
Thank
so I don't have a helmet like Rod, so it's lampshade time for me. $100 super chat. I'm putting a lampshade on for everybody. Who wants to
I want
party?
to say this: if you don't follow Longhorn Frenzy on Twitter, you should try. Nobody pokes at the Aggies quite as well. I'll just put it that way. He does a nice job of it with some message board fodder. Longhorn Frenzy, thank you so much, and happy Memorial Day to everybody. I hope everybody has a good restful holiday weekend here.
Yes, and Longhorn Frenzy, you need to put your Twitter username or your X username in the chat so everybody can be sure to follow you. Oh, man. All right. I want to tell everybody today about Timeline's MitoPure. If you work out, it's a supplement you're going to want to add to your daily regimen because it supports your health at the foundation by encouraging cellular renewal. Even if you don't work out, you need to add MitoPure to your daily routine. It's a precise dose of the rare postbiotic urolithin A. It works by promoting an essential cellular cleanup process that, basically clears out your cell's battery pack. There's a lot of products out there that claim to make you stronger, or maybe they claim to pack on muscle, but Timeline's MitoPure is shown to deliver double-digit increases in muscle strength and endurance without a change in exercise. They don't just claim it, they deliver on it. And I can tell you that I personally love it because I recover much more quickly from my workouts. I can tell a tremendous difference with it. I also have more energy because of it, which is just an added bonus in my book. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Awaken the strength, power, and resilience already in you with the first and only supplement clinically proven to rejuvenate health at the cellular level. And right now, Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure. All you have to do is go to timeline.com/ontexas. That's Timeline, TIMELINE.com/ontexas. Okay, let's see here. And Bobby, if you would tell everyone about Mint Mobile.
Oh, I could do it. Do you say data or data? At my house, we say data. And for the longest time, I thought paying a fortune on my monthly data plan was just normal. That was until we found out about Mint Mobile and their premium wireless plans that start at just $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. Bring your phone number with you along with all your existing contacts. No changes. Just ditch the overpaid price wireless plan and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for just $15 a month. No matter how you say it, don't overpay for it. Shop data plans at mintmobile.com/ontexas. That's mintmobile.com/ontexas. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, 5 gigabyte plan required. It's an equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plans, options available, taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. This is something we've done in our house, and it has worked and worked well. It reduced our price by almost more than $100 a month for all of our phone bills. So mintmobile.com/ontexas.
Well, as I said, let's talk about the Texas comments that were made by anonymous SEC coaches. And looks like they talked to 4 of them. The first one saying, right now, the belief is that Arch will elevate the offense immediately, and you can expect a much more dynamic scheme from Sark. This kid is a legit Heisman-level package. Provided he produces at that level, the offense will be even better. They're stacked with talent. Next coach says they could have one of the best defensive lines in the entire country. They have next-level pass rushers and the size and physicality to win against the run. Another coach says this program is one of the most effectively run in terms of personnel, NIL, and the new era of the sport. And finally, if Manning blows up and goes to the league next year, this is still the program to chase. They're professionalizing in a way that other programs aren't.
I'm going to start with the second comment because I am of the belief that Texas D-line is going to be even better this year than it was last year. And I know people are kind of looking at me sideways on that. But look, Cole Brevard, all the snaps he's played over the ball. Murad Watson was a freshman All-American. We had Tom Luganbill on here, ACC, who does a lot of work with ACC and ESPN, and talked about how high he was on Murad Watson. Alex January's a sophomore, had a really good spring. Travis Shaw, Hero Canoe, Levon Johnson. Texas loves the two freshmen. Doesn't mean you're going to see a ton of them this year. But Myron Charles, Josiah Sharma, Texas loves those guys. Then the edge position, need Colton Vosick to stay healthy. But Ethan Burks and I played a lot of football. Colin Simmons may be the best defensive player in America. He was the National Freshman of the Year. You got versatile guys like Trey Moore and Brad Spence that you can play off the edge if you feel like it. And then you have depth of some young guys in Zena, Lance Jackson, Justice Terry. Yeah, I'm that second one I 100% agree with. I think Texas will have a top 3, if not top 2 defensive line in the country this season in college football.
Man, I hope so. If they do, it's going to be a good year for the Longhorns. Because I think they need that defensive line this year as they kind of get their stuff together in the secondary a little bit with some new folks. I don't know. Look, I have a problem with just earmarking it that good because I haven't seen those guys in person yet. You know, Jerry is talking about Brevard and Watson to some degree have proven it. So is Levon Johnson. I think he may be the most underrated of the group, the young man from Maryland. Alex January, very high on him, to Jerry's point. Best, though, let's see. I think some of that is going to be health related. I really think Texas needs Colton Vosick to be healthy a little bit to maximize because they are beyond Colin Simmons and Ethan Burke. Now that they've moved Trey Moore back to linebacker, they are relatively young at defensive end unless they get a healthy Colton Vosick, Jerry. And so I'm a little concerned there. But that being said, they will have a great pass rush. Let's talk about part 1 of this too. I don't want to just bury the lead here. Right now, the belief is that Arch will elevate the offense immediately. Do we believe that? Me, you, and Rob were talking last night that one of the things that Arch can do that Quinn Ewers it's not his bailiwick, for lack of a better term, is make that first person miss or add a little extra time in the pocket. You know, that second reaction quickness after he drops back that allows a route to develop a little bit more, gets a receiver just a little bit more time to get into it. Do you think that Arch has a chance to elevate the offense immediately? I will say this. In the best case scenario, there is no doubt that he does. Will he do it out of the gate? There's an element of me, Jerry, that he did do that last year when he came in. Like, they scored some points when he played. I think he does elevate the offense immediately. The question is, at what level? I mean, and how often?
So I have mine's maybe a little different within what this coach is saying. I think I think Arch, his strengths match Sark, what Sark ideally wants to do. So that I think elevates Sark before Manning elevates the offense, so to speak. Because back shoulder fade balls, vertical routes outside the numbers along the sidelines. Those just weren't Quinn's strengths as a passer. Arch fits what Sark ideally wants to do. So Sark, in his mind, is these guys playing the season now say, we have the entire field to use at our disposal. So that helps Sark, I think, within his scheme, from a play calling standpoint, from the ability to stretch the field horizontally and vertically all the way, vertically down the field. Now, to me, what remains to be seen for any young quarterback that likes to drive the ball down the field, Arch truly elevates the offense, because all these quarterbacks, and Arch, he showed a little bit of it last year, the guys who are really aggressive down the field, They throw some interceptions deep late or late middle. He's going to truly elevate the offense once he gets that out of his system. Did he get it out of his system last year? Is he still going to have 2 or 3 forced interceptions just because of his talent and the guy that likes to throw it down the field? That, to me, once he gets through that part of his developmental process, I think absolutely he does. I think Arch elevates the run game early on for Texas. I think that's the big thing for me is, and it's not so much the threat of him as a runner, but when the threat of somebody throwing the ball down the field at a very high level, or a guy that will throw it down the field, and people are actually worried about covering outside the numbers, along the sidelines, and down the middle of the field, I think that changes the way teams play defensively against Texas. And what that does is if you get a little more, you can create a little more false step in the linebackers. The linebackers play with a little more depth. You create a little more indecision from the safety who's running up to play the horizontal passing game or playing the run. I think Arch has a chance through Sark, what Arch is going to do for Sark's scheme, to really improve the run game for Texas without using his feet all the time.
I would. So part of what you just described, Jerry, is what DJ Lagway does for Florida.
Exactly.
Throwing the ball down the field allows that inside run game to prosper because you can't bring up the safety. The safety just can't come up blindly. So I see that. I will say this. The other thing about Arch that he has to learn is he has to learn to check down instead of throwing deep, instead of throwing the more difficult pass. You know, if it's 2nd and 10, doesn't need the difficult pass. You need to get into 3rd and 2. And I want to say this. His athleticism should allow him for his check downs to be more successful. A lot of Quinn's check downs came very quick, okay, which is sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good because there's not enough time for the guy to get open, right? You let the check down kind of play out a little bit and put the linebackers in conflict about taking the pass or the run or quarterback scramble. All of a sudden, the running backs get more space to operate later. One of the things that will be a tell of how successful and how smart Arch is playing early is actually the check down later in his progression. Not early in his progression like Quinn Ewers would do, but later in his progression.
And the other thing, too, we're going to see, I think, in this offense is more play action waggles, right? So Sark, I think, is going to be able to move the defense side to side more so through movement of player and quarterback versus movement of ball left and right. And so I think Sark's going to have everything at his play calling disposal. It's going to be interesting to see Ohio State, how much of that he brings to the table since this is Arch's first start on the road, and it's a really big game. I'm interested to see what Sark brings to the table against Ohio State versus what we see by game 5 when it's at Florida. I think it's going to be interesting to see. That's going to tell you exactly where Sark thinks Arch is game 1. If he's out there just throwing haymakers from a play calling standpoint, then he's showing he's bringing out everything. That's a really good sign for Texas season because he thinks Arch can handle it all in the first start on the road.
Let's talk about that last piece too, if y'all don't mind. The NIL.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it back up there for you.
Yeah, because I think that those last 2 comments are kind of in the same ballpark, right? This program is one of the most effectively run in terms of personnel, NIL, and the new era of the sport. Quote, if Manning blows up and goes to the league next year, this is still the program to chase. They're professionalizing in a way other programs aren't. Look, Brandon Harris kind of went, it didn't go under the radar because we covered it fairly extensively. But he hired 2 GMs this offseason, okay, from Georgia Tech and Memphis to work at Texas. So Texas now officially has 3 guys that were lead guys last year. Okay. I think that there is a level of NIL here that's playing a role for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's a level of attention to detail in recruiting that is probably pretty high. And then I really think that Texas gets, I don't know why, but Texas gets knocked for their portal transfers a little bit. Like Texas portal transfers aren't ranked very high, but why not? I mean, they had.
It's amazing.
I mean, in the last 2 years, what other team has had 3 portal guys go in the top 3 rounds, or top 2 rounds?
Yeah.
A.D. Mitchell, Andrew Makuba, Matthew Golden. Who else?
Maybe Ole Miss. I mean, but that's
so. My point is,
out of it.
my point is, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like Texas doesn't get enough credit for the work they've done in the portal.
I agree, especially in this group, especially with this group.
Well, I see portal rankings. There are portal rankings out there that have, what did Texas take, 11 in the portal, Jerry? Is that right?
Yeah.
There are portal rankings out there that have just one player in the entire top 100 portal.
No chance.
That have gone to Texas. I can tell you right now, Murad Watson, Jack, injuries. Murad Watson, those aren't.
Mosley. Brad Spence. You tell me Brad Spence isn't a top 100 transfer? And come on, man.
But that's what I'm getting at with you guys.
Yeah.
Is like, yes, on NIL, yes, on high school recruiting. I think Texas is there's some quiet assassins in the portal, in my opinion. I really believe that. And I think one of the things they've done under Steve Sarkisian and Brandon Harris in the group, Jerry, is they've attacked the right positions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to have a tight end this year, right? Okay, you get the number 2 ranked tight end returning in the class. So anyways,
here's why here's the problem with some of the portal rankings for me is it's an instant gratification ranking, and this portal class for Texas is a 2-year ranking, and it's going to be looked back upon and say, wow, that ranking was really off, because the portal rankings are too much instant gratification. Murad Watson's a multi-year player. And obviously people could say, well, these guys could transfer. But let's just say Texas' retention's been really good. Injuries could be a 2-year player. Emmett Mosley's a 2-year player. Murad Watson, Lavon Johnson, Hero Canoe, Brad Spence, we'll see. He's already on NFL. He's on the NFL radar. Possibility of a 2-year guy. I mean, you just go down the list, the specialists know, but there's more 2-year guys, or the guys who have the ability to be 2-year players out of the portal for Texas in this class than they've had. So I think that's another, to me, that's one of the, and I get it from a portal rankings perspective, because if Walter Nolan transfers to Ole Miss, that's a really big deal. And he's a second round pick. So I get it, but I think there needs to be a mixture more in the portal rankings on some level as people start to figure this stuff out, that it's not just instant gratification, but you also got to look at what these guys could do over a multi-year run for a program.
Walter Nolan's a perfect example, Jerry. Who was ranked higher in the portal rankings last year, Matthew Golden or Walter Nolan?
Walter Nolan was the number 1 player in the portal.
So, Matthew Golden wasn't ranked the top 50 transfer.
Nope.
Okay, much less the number 22 overall player in the draft. So I think that Texas quietly, Andrew Makuba, 2nd round pick. Where was he ranked? He wasn't a top 25 player in the portal.
No.
You think that there were 25 portal players drafted ahead of him? Hell no.
No.
And so, my point being, I just think that Texas for whatever reason, they get dinged a little bit in the portal compared to the Miamis.
I agree.
These defensive backs from Houston are good players. One of them went to Miami, right?
One LSU.
Texas could have gone after those guys, but they decided not to. Right? I'm not trying to negate those guys as players. They're probably good players, but those guys are both ranked in the top 25, 30 players in the portal. Texas didn't even go after them. So are they really that high? I don't know. And then there's the fact that right now it means more to be recruited by Texas because there's a high hump to get over to say that you're worth being on this roster.
I mean, think about this. And this is where I 100% agree with you. If Texas, Georgia, or Ohio State takes a portal guy right now, because when you say they're probably the three most talented rosters, maybe Oregon's most talented.
I still think Alabama could be in there too right now.
Potentially.
Okay.
So let's just say Oregon, Bama. Let's say those are your five. If those guys take a portal transfer, those guys think they're taking a starter level player, even if they're a rotational guy in a D line or something. They're still taking guys they think are starter level players. How many guys are ranked ahead of those guys? The five most talented programs in the country, they're not taking guys to be on their bench. They're taking starter level players, even if they're in a rotation of the position. That's very telling to Bobby's point.
And the reason why you say that is because they've also recruited well in the high school ranks.
Yeah.
To push those guys.
Yeah.
So
good discussion.
Ohio State taking an offensive lineman, they don't do that unless they think the guy's going to be a starter.
That's right.
Yeah,
which means he's an NFL draft pick in their mind.
Yes, I completely agree. That's what we're coming down. That's what it's coming down to for us.
Yeah.
I think so. Of all the pieces that those two coaches had talked about it in that article, Blake and Jerry, the thing that I would take out of that is, yes, I agree that Texas is professionalizing, et cetera. But people still, one of the reasons they're doing that is people undervalue what Texas does in the portal. Point blank, just undervalue what Texas does in the portal.
Finish this up. We haven't really addressed this, but somebody, Bernard said, who is Aaron Murray, the former Georgia quarterback, had some comments recently about, well, if Arch is so good, why didn't he start over a 7th-round pick? I mean, same could be said for Joe Burrow. Go down the list of guys, okay? So that's kind of my response to that. And who is Aaron Murray? He's now the guy that people walk up to and say, hey, man, I really liked you on The Bachelor. And he always has to say, that was my brother. Sorry. That's who Aaron Murray is today. The guy who gets confused with his brother who's on The Bachelor.
Well, before we get to some questions, guys, I wanted to bring this up here. Jordan Washington, who we had on the show last week, and Michael Taft are holding a free football camp. It will be this Saturday, May 31st at Westlake High School. It will be for grades 5th through 12th. So if you have a kid that falls in that age group, head on over to bamfam.org and get them registered. That's BAMFAM.org. Again, it is free. There's also a QR code on the screen. If you would rather sign up that way, it'll take you right to it. But they will be doing that at Westlake High School this Saturday. And I also want to mention that PJ Locke is doing one the following Saturday in Beaumont. You can go to the same URL there to sign up for that one if that's a little closer to your area. But a few Longhorns and a former Longhorn putting on some camps.
Well, don't forget about Peter and Poggy and his camp too. That comes up. He visited with us on the live stream on Coffee and Football a couple weeks ago. He's got one. I sent you his link via Twitter. I think, Blake. But he's got one.
I will get it. I will put it up as well. Let me. That's my apologies. I forgot that one.
Yep, please do. But these guys are all giving back to their communities, which I think is just great. So I think Longhorn football generally they produce a lot of good guys that try to give back. So the one for Michael Taft and Jordan Washington's this weekend. There's also one, the PJ Locke one. There's also one from Peter and Poggy. He's going to have a bunch of current Longhorns at his as well, Blake and Jerry.
Yeah, and I am about to put that up there just for everybody to see real quick, if I can get this to cooperate with me. And it too has a QR code that you can scan there on the screen. June 21st, ages 5 through 16. I can't talk this morning. And yeah, as you said, Roshan Johnson, Trey Owens, Christian Jones, a lot of them there. No doubt about it. Wingo. I'm just looking through that list. It's way too many.
I love it. Some pro football players will be there. They're all, look, these guys are good guys, dude. So I'm happy for them.
Yep.
I'm going to bring this up real quick, Blake, because
Go ahead.
Horn for Life missed. I gave Justice his nickname. His nickname, if his nickname is not the Predator, they're missing it. I nicknamed him Planet Fitness. Not he needs to go to a planet. He is Planet Fitness. That's Justice Terry.
Oh man,
Awesome.
In fact, after whether he goes, however long his NFL career is, after Justice Terry's NFL career is over, he needs to go straight to LA and find movie sets because he will be
Bob
on.
Rowling can set him up with a Gold's Gym. One mega donor, Bob Rowling, I think, still owns Gold's Gym.
Yeah.
He can set him up.
He is Planet Fitness.
I said this the other day. It's traps have traps.
Yes.
That's what it looks like to me.
He walks into Planet Fitness and say, "These are the machines you can't use, sir. Like, no need."
Oh. And one other reminder, and this question actually leads me to it from Zane Petty. Do you think Texas will get the #1 overall seed? I don't as of yesterday evening. I think
Vanderbilt gets it.
I think Vandy gets 1, Texas gets 2. But today, ESPN2 at 11 a.m. is when we'll find out who gets what, who will all be in the regional, that good stuff. And then, as Bobby said earlier, Jeff and I will go live early afternoon and talk about that a little bit and take some of your baseball questions as well. So, we got some questions here, fellas, that we need to get to. And let's see. Actually, we never talked about favorite 96s.
Oh, yeah.
96 days away. Colin here says Chris Whaley's picks against OU will always be legendary.
Absolutely. Jerry, it's time for you to tell people a little bit more about Chris Whaley, his recruitment, maybe a little bit, and who he's got coming up.
Yeah, his son, Chris Whaley, now is a coach at Atlanta High School, and his son is a stud 2028 safety, receiver, basketball player. I mean, elbows in the rim guy at a young age. I was at Carthage High School a few weeks ago to see KJ Edwards, and Coach Surratt and I were talking. He asked me, he said, "Have you been up to see him?" I said, "I haven't been up to see him yet. It'll be next season since he's a younger guy." And he showed me a video from basketball. And he showed me a couple of videos of Whaley's kid in basketball from the season. And I was blown away at his explosiveness at that. He's 6'3.5", 6'4", 185, 190 right now. Super explosive. Plays at Atlanta High School. That's Chris Whaley's son. Obviously, Chris Whaley, he was an interesting recruitment, guys. And we're going to have him on the show because I think soon. But he was recruited as a running back. But I think most people felt like that frame wasn't going to stay at running back very long. It was like Henry Melton, right? And he was in the same class with Christine Michael out of Beaumont Westbrook. But Chris Whaley was coming out of Madisonville. He was just such a big frame. And people ranked him as a running back, and he wanted to play running back as he should at that time. But I'm guessing now he would tell you, man, I should have just transitioned the defensive line early. It's one of those things when you're older, you say those college coaches had a point type of thing. But when you're young, you have, just like Henry Melton, you want to play the position that you've always wanted to play and you've always wanted to be. And when you're that young, you don't want to hear no, I'm not going to be a 290-pound player. But Chris Whaley was that guy. His frame was coming out of a 3A Texas high school at the time, Madisonville. He was 235, 240, 245 as a senior, and hadn't even scratched the surface physically.
So I got to give you my Chris Whaley recruiting story. Texas did not push on some running backs that year, specifically because Chris Whaley wanted to be recruited as a running back.
Yeah.
And I think Texas knew that Chris Whaley ultimately was going to be an NFL player at some position. And they felt like they could take a pass at running back that year and not go heavy running back. And say, okay, Chris, come in and try to do this. A little bit like Henry Melton, Jerry.
Yeah.
That Matt did that with him as well. So I think that the one thing I would say about Chris Whaley is, I think it's particularly pertinent to when Texas recruits athletes. Okay. And when there's a different type of athlete, like Jalen Lott and Jermaine Bishop and this new guy they offered, Paris Melvin, are athletes that are wide receiver DB mostly, or maybe running back slot kind of guys, right, Jerry? There's those kind of athletes. And then there's the jumbo athletes, right? Chris Whaley was a jumbo athlete.
Yes.
You know, who are some other jumbo? Lance Jackson is a jumbo athlete, played tight end and defensive end. They're two different categories when we say athlete. And I think Chris Whaley was that prototypical. Another one, another number 96 that's worth mentioning, Chris Aiken, out of Paris, Texas.
Huge tackle. Tackle.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a guy, he played for John Malkovich's teams in the mid-90s, was one of the stalwarts of that defense. I think he played as a true freshman, may have started as a true freshman in high school or at the University of Texas as well. So, yeah, absolutely. There's been some 96s through the years for sure for the University of Texas.
Let's see, Bobby, before we get to our last couple of questions for the day, can you tell everyone about Longhorn Wealth Management Group one last time?
Yeah, absolutely. John Donovan's been a longtime sponsor. We appreciate him very, very much. Him and his firm, Longhorn Wealth Management. As a proud UT alum, John served 15 years as a Dallas, Texas chapter board member and is now help lead the build out of the Collin County, Texas chapter. John's excited to see our women's softball team advance to the College World Series and the men's baseball team hosting a regional this coming weekend in Austin. To celebrate both programs' continuing success, John wants to offer all OTF fans a free 90-minute private consultation with John to learn how working with a certified financial planner can help you continue to build and manage your own financial successes and discover how you can maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. Take advantage of this free 90-minute consultation. Call John or his team at Longhorn Wealth, 972-707-4900. That's 972-707-4900. Or go online, www.longhornwealth.net to schedule your meeting today. Finally, John and the Longhorn Wealth team want to wish all OTF fans a blessed and grateful Memorial Day celebration. Hook 'em from John and his team at Longhorn Wealth Management. And hook 'em to you, John, and everybody else out there enjoying this holiday weekend.
Antoine says Derek Loki was a 96. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Heck of an athlete. Has a son coming up. Absolutely. Hey, to chat, if y'all remember, I asked last night, I couldn't even find a photo. Leonard Davis, I believe, wore a number in the 90s his freshman year before he moved to offensive line. Anybody in the chat? I couldn't find a picture online on that. If anybody remembers what number Leonard wore his freshman year before moving to 70 on the OLs the sophomore year, let us know.
He played defensive tackle to start his career is what Jerry's referencing.
We have a super chat from Eric Mitchell. Thank you, Eric Mitchell. He says, what up, OTF fam? Haven't caught a live stream for a while now due to work, but y'all consistently do such a great job with all things Texas. Just wanted to say thank you. Y'all keep me going out here in West Texas. Hook 'em.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. We're in West Texas. By the way, I was talking to Bob Shipley over the weekend because we did the Saturday conversation with his son, Jackson, over the weekend, and we were talking about some of the things that he's got going on out there. Bob was telling me that he goes duck hunting out in just west of or north of Rotan, in between Sweetwater. He was naming all these old school West Texas towns that you could just picture going on those little roads. It was fun catching up. I have a soft spot in my heart for West Texas, little guys. I got to admit. Yeah, my dad used to go deer hunting up in San Saba, which is kind of at the beginning of West Texas. So yeah,
couple things. Couple things, Bobby. No, lunch with the coaches will be back. So I think Rob's asking. Zane Petty, do you think Jalen Lott, or Jaden Finley will make a good college receiver? I think they're both really, really good players. I just want to say I think both are going to be very successful.
Finley plays through contact which
Yeah.
the most underrated. I really think that having been around this business now for 30 plus years, the most underrated aspect, you can watch highlights all day. The most underrated aspect of just about any offensive or defensive position, offensive skill position in particular, but defensive position period, is the ability for people to play through contact.
Yeah, no doubt.
In football is just it's just an underrated. It's where you see whether or not they're a football player as opposed to just an athlete. They can play through contact. I mean, even guys like that look like Xavier Worthy and or Devontae Smith, they play through contact. Now they may get knocked around a little bit.
It may not show. Right.
It may not, but they play through contact.
Yeah.
So I think that both any receiver that plays through contact, as well as in particular Finley does, going to be long-term going to be a good player.
Darren Peavy, thank you. Brian Berg, thank you. Leonard wore 98 his freshman year. I remembered him wearing something in the 90s when he wanted to be the D lineman coming out of Wortham. 98. Okay.
Yeah. All right, last question for today. And let's take this one from Joseph Curtis. He says, Jerry and Bobby, outside of Manny, what young corners have the highest potential to get drafted? Maybe Cade Phillips. Also, will Taft Daddy get drafted? And if so, where do you think he goes in the draft?
I think Cade's definitely the guy. When you're just talking height, wingspan, speed, explosiveness, all of that. If he puts the tape with the athleticism, with his physical maturity that'll happen in college, he's easily the guy at corner. Now, we had that discussion last night. Do you count a nickel as a corner? Or Grayson Littleton's making waves. What's Wardell Mack going to look like? Where's Kobe Black at corner? We haven't seen Santana Wilson, talented kid. But if you do you not consider nickel a corner in this conversation? But it's definitely Cade Phillips. Michael Taft, Bobby, I think fourth through sixth round.
Yeah, people have him as high right now as the second round. And I just don't know. I mean, I with Jerry, I think he's more of a fourth through seventh, even though he plays better than that. So this is the whole piece on it, right? Is it's a beauty contest, and what's Michael Taft going to look like at a beauty contest? Well, maybe he looks pretty good at the Fiji house on date night, right? He's doing, but he's not going to look as good as as Kobe Black, for example, who he's a better player than right now. Kobe Black will test better, run. He's
bigger
longer,
frame,
bigger, all that stuff. And Kobe Black's not even sure to be drafted whenever he comes along. We don't even know. But my point is, we'll see. I definitely think with the season he had last year, he's a draft pick. The question is where.
Yeah.
And how healthy is he? He throws his body around pretty recklessly. He has to. I'm not begrudging it. But that's going to be part of it too, if he's healthy. The way he plays with reckless abandon, you can see him losing a shoulder.
Yeah.
In any game. So, but I hope he has a good career in the NFL. I really do.
And we have one other super chat that came in, fellas. This one from Desert Stro. Thank you for your super chat. What happened between Texas and Trendavian Dixon out of Navasota? Jerry?
Oh, gosh. I'm trying to remember back on
Did
that.
he Brenham, not Navasota?
He was Navasota.
Did he transfer?
I don't remember the why on that.
But he backed off a lot of people. He ended up at Houston. Like multiple teams backed off of him.
Yeah, I don't remember the why. Something happened with him, but I don't remember the why part of it. That's a good question. I'll see if I can remember that.
He played at Navasota for Larry Fedora's brother, the former North Carolina head coach. Larry Fedora's brother coached at Navasota during those times. I remember that.
Because he committed to Texas, decommitted, committed to Baylor, ended up at U of H.
And then Texas.
He signed with Baylor. Something happened, and he ended up enrolling at Houston. I don't remember the why, but there was definitely a why.
I just got to say this: the fact that you signed with Baylor and ended up somewhere else, there has to be a reason during that. That may if that Art Briles was not exactly.
Maybe he backed out of
enrolling,
Baylor when all that
church
stuff
groups.
went down is what it was.
I think it's before that. He's before DuVernay.
And then he ended up at Texas Southern in the long run.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I want to thank them, along with Timeline and Mint Mobile, all for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thank you for spending the holiday morning with us as well. We definitely appreciate that. And super chats, be sure to head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Become a member if you haven't already. Use promo code OTFOG when you sign up, and you can get an annual subscription for just $49.95, but only if you use promo code OTFOG. And Bobby, what's later today?
I'm getting on the road right now and heading to the SEC Media Days in Destin, Florida. I'll be there for the next 3 days, checking in. Steve Sarkisian speaks tomorrow at 11 a.m. Greg Sankey hosts a precursor meeting this afternoon at 5:30. We'll see if he says anything interesting. I'll also be listening in to see what Mike Elko has to say. If he has as much bravado in Destin as he did in the Brazos County quarterback club or whatever it was, Brent Venables, as well as Chris Del Conte, Texas athletic director. Sean Miller expected to make a appearance too, Jerry and Blake. But later today we have the college baseball reveal show, and we'll find out who Texas is playing in the regional that Texas is hosting this coming weekend. I know you and Blake, you and Jeff Howe will be talking about that. Then also we have Talking Ball. We have the Winning Drive. Rod Babers, Bob Shipley, CJ Vogel on this afternoon. A little bit of recruiting action in that one, I think, based on some things going on. I am not going to the beach. I'm not going to the beach, although I will be within view of it. So we'll see how it goes.
And by the way, thanks for the $100 super chat.
Yes.
Rod gets a helmet. I give a lampshade.
You look so much better that way.
Should I make an Aaron Murray comment right now? Why was Arch not starting if he was so good?
On that note, that's going to do it for today's episode. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you.